Deep and powerful Tycoon X pretends to be a weak scheming little white flower in Qingfu. After graduating from college, her father held on to all her documents and her mother's only inheritance, threatening her to serve as a replacement for her scumbag brother, the injured person who was beaten and blinded. Unexpectedly, that person had a low and noble figure and reluctantly sought her help. She promised to work with him to hide the truth and regain the power of the group Shengtian. He is a ruthless perpetrator who is deeply trapped in hatred and is determined to seek revenge. She is a weak and helpless person who is forced to accept everything in return. Little White Rabbit, Empress Dowager. She is a talented painter with a delicate and proud appearance, and she is the group leader of the deep and strategic planning of the city government rights holder. Afterwards, she succeeded and retired, and he pursued her with red eyes all the way. Mrs. Zhou, stop running and come home with me. Looking at the man kneeling on one knee, she picked up the ring in his hand and looked at the sunlight, saying, "You know, my wife is big. People are here, please follow me home." Chapter 2. Personal Assistant. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Jiang grabbed onto the corner of his clothes nervously. She was very clear about what had happened, and her father had already explained it to her very clearly before coming here. Although he was always defending his son's intentions, Jiang Zhao was already able to distinguish between what was true and what was false from his words. She didn't know what Lin Rui meant. Showing these documents to her was telling her that everything she suffered now was what she should bear. Looking at Jiang Zhao's puzzled gaze, Lin Rui took out the last document. This is the procedure for your father to send your younger brother to study abroad. Your brother's plane took off this morning when you arrived at this villa and headed for country M. Upon hearing this, Jiang looked up at Lin Rui incredulously. This was her first formal encounter with Lin Rui, and she saw him with a smile on his face that did not reach the bottom of her eyes. His expression was cold and cunning, like a smiling fox in a supernatural novel. If Jiang had dared to say one more refusal, it would have calculated that her family would be ruined. Jiang took a quick look at the application for studying abroad, which was urgently processed the day after the incident. Originally, my father had already planned to protect his son no matter what, and this daughter is really a tool that can be used at any time to exchange for his safety and freedom. Lin Rui looked at Jiang Zhao's trembling and disheartened expression, realizing that his work was already in place, and then said his true purpose for tonight. Miss Jiang also saw that both the police and the hospital have direct evidence to prove the crime of your younger brother Jiang Jian. Your father, in order to protect his son, spared no expense in using all his network strength to send him abroad to evade sanctions. And it was your father who voluntarily proposed that he still has a daughter to take care of the young master until he recovers. Jiang Zhao put down the document and painfully closed his eyes. Lin Rui continued, "You came here as a caregiver. After all, the young master is currently unable to move and needs personal care. Therefore, starting from tomorrow, you will be serving as the young master's personal assistant, helping him with everything from clothing, food, housing to transportation." Upon hearing the words, personal assistant, Jiang Zhao shrank in fear. I can't help but think of some unhealthy things. This morning's incident was too scary for her to be afraid of. As if guessing Jiang Zhao's thoughts, Lin Rui smiled and said, "Miss Jiang, don't worry. What happened this morning won't happen again. There are countless women who want to climb onto the young master's bed every year, and it's not your turn yet." Jiang frowned and agreed, "Okay. I understand. What do you need me to do? You can tell me." Lin Rui was very satisfied with Jiang Zhao's reaction and said, "Every day, the young master wakes up, combs and changes clothes, goes to the office for meetings, has breakfast, lunch, dinner, and washes and makes the bed before going to bed. You must always be by the young master's side, and do whatever the young master needs you to do." Jiang Zhao was a bit puzzled and said, "I'm not good at these things. How could Zhou Lichuan think I could do it well?" Lin Rui maintained his fox-like smile and said, "You don't need to do well, just do it. Even if you have all 18 martial arts skills, there are still professional people around you. Your existence has its own role. Moreover, the young master said that you learn quickly and will definitely be able to handle this position. At this point, a scene from the morning came to Jiang Zhao's mind. I couldn't help but frown. After Lin Rui left, Jiang Zhao went back to his room to sleep. There is too much news tonight, she needs to digest it well. Go to sleep, today has already passed, and today's pain will stay today. I will definitely come tomorrow. The next morning, Jiang was already taken by Lin Rui to Zhou Lichuan's room upstairs. Zhou Lichuan was sitting by the bed wearing an eye mask, waiting for someone to come and serve him. At Lin Rui's signal, Jiang Zhao stepped forward and helped Zhou Lichuan up, taking him to the bathroom to wash up. Looking at the man who had once bullied him yesterday, Jiang Zhao tried his best to suppress the spasms in his stomach, as if the taste and touch of yesterday were still stuck in his mouth. Zhou Lichuan, who woke up in the morning, didn't think as much as Jiang Zhao did. He didn't even realize who was taking care of him. After washing his face, he naturally reached out to the side for a towel. Jiang Zhao placed the towel in Zhou Lichuan's hand and accidentally scratched his fingers, causing the man to furrow his sharp eyebrows. Jiang Zhao. Yes. It's me, Jiang Zhao responded softly. Zhou Lichuan sneered and said, I thought after Lin Rui came to see you, you would be humiliated and leave in anger. I didn't expect you to actually stay. Why? Zhou Lichuan asked casually, while Jiang Zhao answered more casually. For a house. Zhou Lichuan didn't speak anymore, and I could guess the contempt in his heart at this moment. After wiping his hands dry, he threw the towel towards Jiang Zhao's direction. It happened to hit her in the face. Putting away the towels, Jiang followed Zhou Lichuan out of the bathroom, while Lin Rui stood at the door of the cloakroom waiting for the two of them to come out. Zhou Lichuan, relying on memory and instinct, touched the location of the cloakroom. Lin Rui reached out and placed Zhou Lichuan on a nearby chair, starting to teach Jiang Zhao how to take care of his shirt and tie, how to match colors, and what kind of clothes to change for different occasions. Jiang remembered carefully, but was suddenly stopped by Zhou Lichuan. Alright, how long can she do it? After a while, just find a room and lock it up. Do you really expect her to be outstanding enough to replace your job? Good young master. Lin Rui's train of thought was interrupted without any discomfort, and he readily responded to Zhou Lichuan's words. In seemingly harmonious communication, only Jiang Zhao's corner of the eye accurately caught a glimpse of a momentary change in Lin Rui's gaze. The hatred and anger buried in it almost made Jiang Zhao think he had read it wrong. After all, when he turned his head again, he returned to his original appearance. Perhaps I really misread. Jiang Zhao followed Zhou Lichuan to the company and sat in a wheelchair. Jiang Zhao pushed his wheelchair from behind and walked into the elevator in front of a crowd of employees, passing through the office area and directly reaching the CEO's office. Jiang Zhao's eyes were bright. In a small corner of the office area, she indeed discovered the person who had pushed herself into this hell. Her father Jiang Jingyuan. Don't pretend to be invisible. The group quickly entered Zhou Lichuan's office. Zhou Lichuan also quickly entered his work role. Although he was still wearing a black veil over his eyes, he had a clever mind and could easily stir up waves with his words. His decision-making ability should not be underestimated. Jiang Zhao is a student of arts and humanities. The Zhou family's business is focused on industrial production, and she has no understanding of the process and various data involved. Zhou Lichuan seemed to know that she couldn't understand, so she didn't shy away from her during work communication. Occasionally, someone knocks on the door and comes in to discuss work with Zhou Lichuan. Jiang had been hiding his breath as much as possible on the side, hoping that the omnipotent Zhou would not think of him at this moment. A person who claimed to be the senior manager of the project team reported to Zhou Lichuan for over an hour of work, but Zhou Lichuan was still dissatisfied with the answer he gave. wrinkled his brow and shook his head repeatedly. As he was about to get angry, Lin Rui stood up in time and said, "Mr. Zhou, I have an idea about this matter. Let's first go to the offline factory to plan out the feasible processes, and then go to the market to select suitable raw materials. This way." Is Chapter 1 here? Kneel down. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the early morning, a black Mercedes-Benz Nanny parked in front of a luxurious villa in the suburbs. The driver got off the car and opened the back door, and Jiang Zhao came down with his luggage. The driver handed Jiang Zhao a set of keys and politely said, "Miss Jiang, we have arrived. Here are the keys for entering and exiting this villa. Please take them and enter by yourself." Jiang Zhao nervously took the key and said, "Thank you." The driver said, "You're welcome," and got on the car before leaving. Jiang Zhao just looked up at this villa. She has never seen such a luxurious villa in her life. This is a villa that leans towards American style. She doesn't understand architecture, but she is still intimidated by its flamboyant spirit. Dragging his luggage into the door of the villa. Entering is a large courtyard filled with lawns, flower beds, and fountains. However, the fountain has been shut down, leaving only dry branches and fallen leaves. In this bleak autumn wind, the neglected lawn also turns yellow, not as healthy as it should be. Jiang Zhao took a deep breath and constantly comforted himself, "It's okay, it's just the wind." Speaking of the tight jacket wrapped around it, one cannot help but feel desolate in the autumn wind. My half-brother caused a big disaster, and during the street brawl, it affected the only heir of the Zhou family, Zhou Lichuan, resulting in his accidental blindness. The Zhou family is one of the leading wealthy families in China, with a family background, a century of operation, deep roots, and business spread across various industries. As a small middle-level employee of the Zhou Group, my father couldn't bear the pressure from his wealthy family and could only send her to serve Mr. Zhou until he recovered. Of course, the father knew what she would experience, but compared to the son he had worked hard to obtain after his second marriage, the extra daughter left by his deceased wife was just a debt collector who only knew how to spend money. As long as you abandon your daughter, you can save your precious son, not to mention how cost-effective it is. After walking for a long time, Jiang Zhao finally walked to the door of the villa. Open the villa door with the largest key in your hand. With a click, the morning light outside struggled to surge into the room, mixed with relatively fresh air. The doors and windows of the villa are tightly closed, and the curtains are tightly pulled together, blocking out the bright morning light. Jiang walked in cautiously. Unexpectedly, there was a man sitting in the hall, and Jiang Zhao was so scared that he took a breath of air. "Hello, I'm Jiang Zhao." The man wore a black scarf around his eyes, which made it clear that his eyes were not very convenient. Wearing a dark shirt with unbuttoned buttons above, revealing a solid and well-developed chest muscles. He sat still and did not respond to Jiang Zhao in any way. "Are you Zhou Lichuan?" "Young Master Zhou?" Jiang Zhao asked cautiously again. The man remained silent for a moment before finally speaking, "Come here." Jiang Zhao put down his luggage and walked step by step to Zhou Lichuan's side. Zhou Lichuan raised his hand and grabbed Jiang Zhao's sleeve, touching his hand along the fabric. Jiang Zhao University is a student majoring in oil painting. After years of soaking in paint and holding a pen, her fingers are not as smooth and soft as those of ordinary girls. With such thick hands, Jiang Jingyuan usually abuses you. Jiang Jingyuan is Jiang Zhao's father. This sentence was inexplicably asked, and Jiang Zhao couldn't distinguish between good and bad, so he had to shake his head gently. Thinking that Zhou Lichuan couldn't see it, he spoke up and said, "No. No." Suddenly, Zhou Lichuan grabbed Jiang Zhao's hand and forcefully pulled him down, dropping him and half kneeling in front of him. Zhou Lichuan's hand touched Jiang Zhao's face in the direction and pinched her chin, asking, "I heard you just graduated. You're young and haven't even been in a relationship. So young, can you serve people? Jiang was already trembling with fear, and his voice squeezed out from his throat. I can learn to do it. Zhou Lichuan sneered and said, okay, let me teach you a little. Kneel down. Under the strong pressure of his palm, Jiang Zhao was forced to tidy up his posture and knelt calmly in place. 40 minutes later, Jiang had already entered his room, hiding in the bathroom and frantically brushing his teeth with a toothbrush. She exerted all her strength. The hard toothbrush rampaged in her mouth, the soft inside of her mouth was scratched by the toothbrush, and blood mixed with toothpaste foam flowed from the corners of her mouth. The showerhead is filled with warm water, but it cannot wash away the coldness from the inside out. She stood under the showerhead wearing a thin inner garment, covering up her pain with the sound of water flowing. Before she could join the company she had just negotiated, her biological father took away all the documents and demanded that she make amends for his son. After negotiating the price and chips, she was humiliated and trampled on like an object in this gloomy villa. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but feel sad, tears mixed with hot water from top to bottom covering my face. Jiang was arranged to live on the second floor, with Zhou Lichuan's room above him. The sound insulation of the villa was excellent, and there was no sound from upstairs. I thought that a demon-like character like Zhou Lichuan would never let her go. After a day of trembling, he never found her again. Before going to bed, the villa maid knocked on Jiang Zhao's door. Miss Jiang, Manager Lin is looking for you. Please go to the living room. Upon hearing this, I had to get up and go out. Steward Lin's name is Lin Rui, and he is one of the closest people around Zhou Lichuan. He grew up with Zhou Lichuan from a young age, and the two of them are siblings. The Zhou family once sent butler Lin to study at a hotel academy in Sweden, but after returning, they were still willing to hire butler Lin at a high salary to continue working. Jiang Zhao recalled what his father had said about the Zhou family when he went out, and slowly walked down the stairs to the living room on the first floor. Looking at the sofa in the morning, Jiang Zhao felt somewhat uneasy. I don't know if anyone saw it in the morning. I just hope Zhou Lichuan doesn't become so perverted that he's willing to show others that kind of thing. Miss Jiang, please take a seat. Lin Rui greeted Jiang Zhao and sat down, holding a thick stack of documents in his hand. Jiang Zhao didn't look askance, nodded and sat down. Lin Rui took out a copy from a pile of documents and placed it on the coffee table in front of Jiang Zhao. This is the young master's injury assessment, which was conducted in a formal manner at an affiliated hospital. Severe head injuries have caused temporary blindness, right leg fractures, and some skin injuries. Jiang didn't move for a long time, but his eyes fell on the paper, carefully reading the text on it. Subsequently, Lin Rui took out another document. This is the investigation result of the police into the situation at that time. It is confirmed that your brother Jiang Zhiyan maliciously engaged in a fight with someone, and during the chase, he identified the young master as his accomplice in helping the other party. He surrounded the young master until he became unconscious, until passers-by discovered and reported the incident to the police. Chapter 4. The Father in Rumors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Dudu. The door to the office was knocked on untimely, and before Zhou Lichuan could answer, the doorknob began to turn, as people outside the door were about to enter. Zhou Lichuan grabbed Jiang Zhao's hand tightly and with a brute force, pulled her to the front and sat on her lap. Just as he sat down firmly, the office door was pushed open, and a refined middle-aged man in a suit and leather shoes stood at the door. Seeing Jiang Zhao sitting on Zhou Lichuan's lap, I was slightly surprised, and then I saw Jiang Zhao's flushed eyes and unyielding gaze. I seemed to understand something and smiled happily. Xiaochuan, how bad is your influence? Being seen in broad daylight, how can a girl behave? Zhou Lichuan raised his head and said, so it's Uncle Air. Uncle Air is so polite. He even knows how to knock on the door when he enters my office. Jiang turned his head and stopped looking at the person at the door. Through the door, the appearance of her sitting on Zhou Lichuan's lap has already been seen by people outside. It is believed that only a lunch break is needed, and Zhou Lichuan's erotic news in the office can spread throughout the company. Everyone knows, and Jiang Jingyuan naturally knows. Jiang lowered his head and remained silent, like a frightened little rabbit. His eyes were moist and his nose turned red, and his pitiful expression fell into the eyes of the person standing at the door, receiving a mocking chuckle. Zhou Quan, known as the second uncle by Zhou Lichuan, closed the door and walked inside a few steps before seeing a watch in a glass cup on the table. "Oh my, brewing tea with a watch, is it delicious?" Zhou Lichuan took advantage and patted Jiang Zhao's back with a broad palm, saying, "I asked you to throw that annoying thing away. Did you throw it into a teacup?" Jiang lowered his head and said somewhat aggrieved, "I don't know. I just threw it casually and didn't see it." Upon hearing this, Zhou Lichuan smiled and said, "Uncle Heir, is there something to do? If it's okay. I'm still a bit busy here." Jiang wanted to stand up from Zhou Lichuan's leg, but was pushed back by Zhou Lichuan. Zhou Quan laughed and said, "It's okay, what can I do? I just came out of the meeting and heard that you came over. It's your first day at work after getting injured. It looks like you're recovering well, so I feel at ease." Zhou Lichuan raised his hand towards the door and said without hesitation, "Could you please close the door, uncle? I have something else to discuss with Miss Jiang." What else did that person want to say? He opened his mouth but remained silent for a moment before turning and leaving. "When I went out, I slammed the office door hard and with a loud bang, it caught everyone's attention." "What are you looking at?" Zhou Lichuan asked Jiang Zhao. Jiang Zhao sat in place and looked at the door, saying, "I'm seeing how your second uncle can't kill you and how he can't do anything about you." Zhou Lichuan was somewhat surprised and said, "How could you be so smart?" Jiang Zhao stood up and patted his shoulder, saying, "I can't compare to young Master Zhou's courage and meticulousness. He dares to trust a woman who has never met before and was sent as a hostage by the enemy." Zhou Lichuan curved his lips and said, "I have my own reasons." Jiang Zhao continued, "Your second uncle must be the one who harmed you behind the scenes. The news about the Zhou family's struggle for family property was often heard a few years ago. He doesn't agree with you as a junior, so he wants to take power on his own." Zhou Lichuan nodded and said, "Yes. You guessed it right. If it weren't for Zhou Quan's desire to take power, he wouldn't have been able to convince Lin Rui to be sentenced. Now that my parents are not in China, even my trusted colleagues in the company can't compete with them. Only by relaxing their vigilance can I wait for an opportunity to counterattack." Upon hearing this, Jiang realized and said, "It turns out that young Master Zhou wants me to be your lover." Zhou Lichuan's eyes were lifeless, and his ears turned to Jiang Zhao's direction, smiling and saying, "Why, unwilling?" Jiang Zhao raised his eyebrows and said, "I just graduated this year, young and energetic. I don't have much social interaction. You wealthy people like to use girls like me to burn warehouses the most, don't you? Are you still looking at Haruki Murakami?" "No, I just love watching TV dramas." Zhou Lichuan knew she was wronged, but he was helpless. "Don't take it easy, little girl. Being angry is not good for your health. Don't worry, I won't need it for a long time. It's just to let those people relax their guard and won't do anything to you again." Jiang nodded silently, regardless of whether he could see it or not. Although Zhou Lichuan's eyes were not good, he never fell behind in his work. All the contents are familiar to the heart. Jiang Zhao orally explained the content of the document to him, but he accidentally discovered and corrected the deviation with precision. When Zhou Lichuan pointed out again that the data she read was incorrect, Jiang realized early on that being a boss was not an easy task. Lin Rui left for 2 days, and Jiang Zhao had a clear understanding of the affairs around Zhou Lichuan. From clothing, food, housing, and transportation to work processes, Zhou Lichuan intends to cultivate them, and Jiang Zhao is also skilled. On the weekend, Zhou Lichuan didn't go to work. At lunchtime, Jiang Zhao transformed into a maid and conscientiously helped Zhou Lichuan pick up vegetables and take care of lunch. When Lin Rui finished his assignment and returned to the villa, he saw such a scene. Jiang Zhao disliked the pitch-black room. After gaining recognition from Zhou Lichuan, the villa no longer drew curtains during the day, allowing sunlight to shine into the room through the window. In the harmonious sunlight, the two of them cooperated and enjoyed lunch in harmony. He was blinded by the harmony of the picture. "Young master, I have returned and the factory has been going very smoothly. Please rest assured." Zhou Lichuan picked up the towel next to his hand and wiped his mouth, saying, "Thank you very much. If it weren't for you, I would have had a long argument with Mr. Gao and his team." Lin Rui lowered his head and looked very obedient. "It's your cultivation, young master." Zhou Lichuan nodded and said, "Just come back and sit down to eat together." Lin Rui refused, "No, young master. Miss Jiang took good care of her. I want to go back and tidy up first, and then replace her in the afternoon." Zhou Lichuan nodded again and allowed him to leave. Shortly after Lin Rui turned around, before he left the restaurant completely, he suddenly said to Jiang Zhao, "In the afternoon, you go to the mall to pick out a perfume for yourself. Now you don't smell good." Jiang lowered his head and whispered, "I understand." As Lin Rui left, Jiang Zhao placed his palm on Zhou Lichuan's forearm and grabbed it, reassuring him. In the afternoon, Jiang Zhao followed Zhou Lichuan's instructions and took the car arranged by the villa to the shopping mall under the Zhou family's name in the city center. Choose perfume from various luxury stores. Suddenly, his shoulder was slapped, and he turned his head to realize that it was Jiang Jingyuan with his wife. "Dad, Aunt Su, are you here to buy something?" Su Yunwei snorted coldly, "Oh, how come only you can come here? Can't I come? At such a young age, I don't know how to respect my elders. Do you really think that sending you to Master Zhou's side is to become an empress?" The shop assistant next to him heard these words as if he had heard something big. On the surface, he seemed to be observing everything, but in reality, he was already focused on listening to more gossip. Jiang Zhao was very uncomfortable. He put down the incense-tasting item in his hand and asked the clerk to put it away. He turned to the two people and said, "I don't want to go, but who wants Jiang Zhiyan to have a good father?" Before he could finish speaking, Jiang Jingyuan raised his hand and slapped Jiang Zhao directly in the face. With a loud bang, the rest of the customers and staff in the store looked sideways. "Who taught you to talk to elders like this?" Chapter 8. Intense Generals. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Jiang had not yet regained his senses, and when Zhou Lichuan got up, he quickly sat up and moved back, reaching out to fasten his bra. "Are you scared?" Upon hearing Jiang Zhao's trembling breathing, Zhou Lichuan asked softly. Jiang Zhao took a deep breath to adjust his mood, shook his head, and said, "It's okay." "How did you know he was coming in?" Zhou Lichuan smiled and said, "My eyes are not working well, so my ears are particularly sensitive." Jiang hesitated for a moment and wanted to change the topic. "The hospital said it's temporary, it will get better soon, and you don't have to worry too much." Zhou Lichuan said, "I'm not worried about this either, but you're scared, I'm sorry." Jiang Zhao held it for a while, but finally couldn't help but cry. "Woo woo woo woo. You just. Do you know how scary you are? I thought you were going to treat me again." Zhou Lichuan's thoughts were disrupted by the crying, and he quickly comforted, "I'm sorry, really, don't cry. I'm a jerk, I'm a bad person, why don't you hit me? Relieve my anger." After speaking, he extended his head towards Jiang Zhao, as if he really hoped that Jiang Zhao could slap him twice. Jiang Zhao reached out and pushed his face away, saying, you stay away from me. Okay. I'll stay away from you, far away, not even close to you, okay. Judging from his sincere attitude of coaxing others, Jiang Zhao was not as angry for a while. Just as he relaxed, he saw Zhou Lichuan reach into the bedside table and rummage through things, taking out a delicate pair of scissors. The scissors are also adorned with some gemstones, which are exceptionally beautiful. Jiang Zhao asked in a muffled voice, "What are you doing?" Zhou Lichuan retorted, "Didn't you never date a boyfriend?" "Yeah. Hey. I saw Zhou Lichuan lift up his pants and use scissors to pierce his calf. The scissors were incredibly sharp, and in an instant, they cut through his skin, causing blood to gush out. Zhou Lichuan stretched out his long legs, allowing blood to flow down and seep into the thick blanket. "What are you doing? Although I'm a bit scared and angry, I shouldn't punish you like this. What are you doing? Oh, get up, where's the tissue? I'll stop the bleeding for you." Zhou Lichuan grabbed Jiang Zhao, who was nervous and flustered on the side, and comforted him, "Don't worry, it's okay. It's just to show Lin Rui. I didn't puncture deeply, so I don't need to stop the bleeding." "Show Lin Rui. Ah. I understand now." Zhou Lichuan touched her soft hair and said, "Go to the rack in the closet, there is a bottle of essential oil to protect leather goods. Pour some around the bloodstains on the carpet." Jiang got up early, took back the essential oil, opened the lid, and a familiar yet unfamiliar smell came out. 1 second reminded her of the first time she saw Zhou Lichuan. Zhou Lichuan saw that there was no movement from her and chuckled lightly, "I used to joke with Lin Rui that this essential oil smells a bit artificial. I didn't expect it to come in handy today. You don't need to pour too much, the essential oil is too much less at once, and Lin Rui will discover it." Jiang obediently dropped a few drops of essential oil and then put the small bottle back in place. After a brief tidying up, the two of them lay down to rest. As the night grew deeper, Zhou Lichuan slept in his clothes. Jiang Zhao covered the quilt that had been brought over and lit the bedside lamp, reading the book he had brought back from the study. The relaxed and cheerful words mixed with the unique voice of the girl turned into the best lullaby of the night. In the morning, Jiang Zhao had breakfast with Zhou Lichuan and said that he needed to get the perfume he had ordered the day before. Zhou Lichuan responded expressionlessly. Lin Rui quickly stood up and said he wanted to see her off. Zhou Lichuan stopped Lin Rui and said, "Lin Rui, I still have work to do for you. Let Jiang Zhao find a driver himself." Lin Rui stood still and agreed, "All right, Miss Jiang, be careful on the way." Jiang nodded early and left the villa. As soon as he left the villa door, he took out his phone and called Jiang Jingyuan. "I invited someone to the coffee shop where we met yesterday." Jiang Zhao picked up the customized perfume in the perfume shop. As soon as he entered the coffee shop, he saw that Jiang Jingyuan had been waiting for him in his seat yesterday. "I really can't wait." "Sit still." Without saying a word, Jiang Zhao took out the seal box he had changed yesterday from his bag and placed it in front of him. Looking up at Jiang Jingyuan. Jiang Jingyuan stared greedily at the gorgeous dark green box. "Jiang Zhao, you're so amazing. You really deserve to be my daughter, but you got the seal in just 1 day." Seeing him reaching out to take it, Jiang Zhaofei quickly retrieved the seal and put it in his own hand. "Here you go, let's talk about the conditions first." Jiang Jingyuan sneered and sat up straight, gesturing for her to continue. "I need my documents. It's illegal to withhold someone else's ID card, even if you're my father." Jiang Jingyuan felt that Jiang was really innocent, and even now, he was still discussing the law with him. "What? If I don't give you the documents, won't you give me the seal? Don't forget, I don't just have the documents in my hand." Jiang Zhao frowned and said, "As you said, it's just an old building in a small county town that you don't even care about. I don't take it seriously, but you do. Jiang Zhao, our father and daughter have been together for so many years, and you haven't given me a good face. Why should I give you a house? Jiang Zhao was furious and said, do you want to go back on your word? It's not that I want to go back on my word, it's that you need to negotiate terms first. Jiang Zhao, if you don't give me the seal, I guarantee you won't get that house. Don't think I don't know what you're thinking, that house is where you grew up, and someone like you who values emotions can't let go of those old things. If you threaten me with something else, I'll sell that house now. If you have the ability, you can buy it yourself. Aren't you rich? Even going to college is for your own money, and you're so rich, you can't afford a house. Jiang Zhao clenched his fists tightly together and angrily said, it was you who refused to let me go to school, hid my admission letter, and even caused my grandmother's illness to recur and die. My grandmother risked her life to go to the notary office to keep her inheritance as the cost of my education. In these years, I have never taken a penny from you. Why did you treat me this way? If it weren't for what? Jiang Jingyuan's expression became extremely difficult to see. If it weren't for my wife stealing your admission letter and giving it to you, could you have today? Jiang Zhao, your life was given by me, and you can only listen to me in this lifetime. You still negotiate terms with me. Bring the seal, and I see that your actions are quite straightforward. I won't pursue your disobedience today. If there is another time, you will never get what you want. Jiang was pinned in place, holding his breath in his chest and unable to come back, his eyes turning red but unable to refute. He placed the seal in his hand heavily on the table, and the loud sound attracted others from the coffee shop to look over. Jiang Jingyuan quickly put away the seal, kicked it in his pocket, and took it away. Jiang Zhao saw him leave decisively and quickly wiped away the tears on his face. He thought to himself that he should really become an actor. Tears come naturally, and his innate ability is really a godsend chasing after him to feed. Pack up your things, pay for the coffee, and Jiang gets up early to rush to the next place. Chapter 7. Trust and Being Trusted. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After returning to the room, Zhou Lichuan followed Jiang Zhao to read to him. As soon as he spoke, he was met with disapproval from young Master Zhou. What book are you holding? End of Green Gables, Jiang Zhao replied. Zhou Lichuan asked in a low voice, do you think it's suitable? Jiang Zhao pouted, but she didn't read it. She casually picked up a book from many bookshelves, but who knew that Zhou Lichuan's study could still have this kind of girl literature? Zhou Lichuan stood up, grabbed Jiang Zhao's arm, and walked towards the bedroom. Young master. What are you doing, young master? Jiang Zhao was startled and let out a scream. Zhou Lichuan held onto her arm and said fiercely, you have to serve people. You're so clumsy that you're going to die. If you want to read, you don't read well either. If you come to my side, there must be something that makes me happy. You don't need to learn this, just lie down. Young master, please don't. I will read well, I will definitely read well. Please let me go, please. Zhou Lichuan laughed angrily and said, let you go. Humph, who will let me go? Two people walked into the bedroom, and the door was heavily slammed, making a loud noise. As soon as he closed the door, Jiang Zhao broke free from Zhou Lichuan's grip and rubbed the area where he had been scratched. You're exerting too much force, it's hurting me so much. Zhou Lichuan let go of his sinister expression and smiled lightly, pretty. Jiang ignored him and rubbed his arms as he sat on the blanket on the ground, asking, I've always had a question. Why do they install eavesdropping instead of surveillance? If they can see the footage, wouldn't it be more reassuring? Zhou Lichuan groped for Jiang Zhao's direction and patiently explained to her while sitting on the carpet, there are only 3 helpers in the villa, not to mention the driver and security guard. They dare not openly place surveillance cameras on the table. The monitors are not limited to space and can be easily placed in corners. Jiang nodded and asked, isn't there anything in the bedroom? Can they hear us talking like this? Zhou Lichuan said, no, don't worry. There is a special device in my bedroom to isolate electronic devices, and it has also been professionally soundproofed. Take out your phone and see if there is no signal. Jiang Zhao took out his phone from his pocket, and indeed there was no signal on it. For a moment, she felt a little heartbroken and said, "Are you having doubts about the current situation when you install these in your own room?" Zhou Lichuan smiled, and the gauze on his face couldn't stop his distant thoughts. How do you think I became the boss of this group? Zhou Quan's son wanted to kill me in order to fight for power. Stealing a chicken won't erode the rice, and his car fell off the winding mountain road, causing damage and death. If I still don't know how to be on guard, I'm afraid I won't even know how to die. Jiang Zhao suddenly approached Zhou Lichuan, his gentle breath hitting his face directly. Zhou Lichuan instinctively dodged back and asked, "What's wrong?" Jiang Zhao chuckled and said, "Why do you trust me so much? Even though you have been betrayed by people around you and calculated by your family, do you still believe in me, a stranger you have never met before? Even willing to entrust all your life and fortune to me? Perhaps it's because the people around me are not trustworthy that I choose to trust outsiders." "No, you're lying to me." Jiang Zhao stubbornly pushed Zhou Lichuan forward step by step, forcing him to lean against the bed. Zhou Lichuan reached forward and touched Jiang Zhao's cheek all the way, saying, "You must look very similar to your mother." Jiang Zhao finally stopped there, waiting for him to continue speaking. "Your mother used to be a kindergarten teacher before she passed away, right?" Jiang nodded and said, Zhou Lichuan put down his palm and said gently, "I used to be her student. The kindergarten she worked for was funded by my family. At that time, my parents had a strained relationship and argued every day, so I was raised in another courtyard in the county town. I often hid in the kindergarten and didn't go home. Mr. Wu always accompanied me, taking me to eat and rest. I only remember that she was a very beautiful and gentle teacher." Jiang sat back early and listened to him continue speaking. "In those years, I hardly felt any family affection at home. Teacher Wu treated me like a mother, loving and gentle. When you were just born, I only started elementary school and even visited your home to see Teacher Wu. I even hugged you. You were small, soft, lying in my arms. I poked your mouth with my hand, woke you up, and you cried while peeing all over me." Jiang Zhao quickly reached out his paw and blocked the mouth, saying, "Stop talking, stop talking. How can embarrassing things from my infancy be brought up after more than 20 years? Zhou Lichuan smiled and took away his small hand from his mouth, whispering, all right, I won't talk anymore. Do you still suspect me now?" Jiang Zhao restrained his temper and sat back honestly. "Oh my, I didn't suspect you at first. You said my mother was your kindergarten teacher, so that's right. Anyway, I can't remember, of course, whatever you say is what you say." Jiang Zhao. "Ah. I just asked you to get the seal, you hesitated, right?" Jiang Zhao's silence was an answer. Zhou Lichuan was very clear that she was not a reckless person. Before doing anything, she would definitely think carefully and carefully. If Jiang had retreated from the battle, Zhou Lichuan would not have felt anything. After all, it was related to a lifetime's future. How could a delicate little girl bear such a heavy burden? But she still completed what he had instructed, which gave him a different feeling of satisfaction. He remembered the ordinary residential building in the small county town, and the feeling of the milky and tender baby huddled in his arms. Soft with a hint of sweetness mixed in. Zhou Lichuan. "I'm sorry, I almost betrayed you just now." Zhou Lichuan reached out and gently patted her back, saying, "It's okay, you have your own grievances. I understand. Your father's job in the company was approached by Teacher Wu alone, asking for my help. She said that a teacher and student relationship will only ask for this one thing in their lifetime, so she hopes I can help no matter what." Jiang Zhao followed his train of thought and said, so when my father took the initiative to propose that he still had a daughter to replace his son as a slave, you readily agreed. Yes. I bet you must be like your mother, gentle, kind, and intelligent. Jiang was praised so much that his cheeks turned red and he scratched his head with embarrassment. Suddenly, Zhou Lichuan quickly pulled open the buttons of his shirt, revealing his strong muscles, and threw Jiang Zhao onto the carpet. With a clever move, the right hand reached towards Jiang Zhao's back and untied his bra. Before Jiang could react, his mouth was blocked. A soft and unfamiliar touch, carrying the unique pine fragrance of a man's body. I was accidentally pried open my teeth, and my slippery tongue rushed into my mouth, unable to hide. The man's body was huge and heavy, and she couldn't push it away at all. In a panic, she pushed back and cried out. Zhou Lichuan took the opportunity to descend and left 2 red marks on her neck. Don't. The voice of rejection had not yet landed and the bedroom door was pushed open from outside. Lin Rui's voice rang out simultaneously. Young master, I will. Get out of here. Zhou Lichuan's roar stopped him from pushing the door. Lin Rui was stunned for a moment, quickly retreated, and closed the door tightly. He leaned over Jiang Zhao and listened quietly. A few minutes later, Zhou Lichuan sat up straight and got up from Jiang Zhao. Chapter 11. End. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After placing Zhou Lichuan, the police officers left and went to the nearby room to monitor. Through a single glass, there were once intimate close friends inside. The current confrontation between the 2 parties is truly regrettable. You did indeed come. Lin Rui's voice was a bit hoarse. He didn't speak well for several days, but suddenly spoke up, feeling a bit uncomfortable for a moment. Zhou Lichuan sat there calmly and said, Yes, the police said you want to see me. Thinking about our years of friendship, there must be an ending. Friendship. Haha. Lin Rui snorted coldly, What kind of friendship do you have between us? The relationship between master and servant. I'm just a servant of your Zhou family. Talking about friendship with me. Are you not afraid of lowering your status? Zhou Lichuan was speechless and said, Lin Rui, it has been over 100 years since the fall of the Qing dynasty. You have also studied abroad and seen the world. Why are you still full of servility in your mind? Lin Rui asked, Do I have a choice? I have been raised in your family since childhood, and I live and eat with you. I am an orphan in your family's care and support. But I have to serve you since childhood, be your attendant, and rely on your breath to survive. Only by following you, can others look at me more, and then know that his mother Lin Rui who runs errands with the master of the Zhou family. I am Lin Rui. I am myself. I am not a slave who signed a contract of betrayal. Zhou Lichuan was not affected by Lin Rui's anger, and his voice remained steady and deep. But ultimately, no one forced you. I gave you many opportunities to choose. It was you who chose this path. Lin Rui sneered angrily and said, Yeah, what if I chose it myself? Do I have any other options? I want to stand out, I want others to see me, my name is Lin Rui, not Zhou Lichuan's follower. What's wrong with me? I just want everyone to admire me. What's wrong? Only you, Zhou Xiaoye, have the right to be looked up to by others in the world. Everyone else has to bow their heads and let you trample on me. Zhou Lichuan put his hands together on his legs and calmly asked, Since it's all your own choice, you've chosen a hotel academy and a job as a butler. So what are you arguing about? Lin Rui slammed his hands fiercely on the table in front of him and said, If I hadn't chosen this way, where would I have had the chance to stand at the top? This society, this world, and where has it given orphans like me a fair chance to compete? You children of wealthy families are just making decisions that ordinary people can make, but if you haven't made any mistakes, you can be called the dragon and phoenix among people, the pillars of the country. But what about us? We, who were born in poverty, can only live a life of survival and serve as a backdrop for your glorious life. Why? After listening, Zhou Lichuan still had no waves on his face and said, so this is the reason for your illegal crime. Lin Rui was stunned for a moment, his eyes burning red with anger gradually moistened. Yes, he committed a crime. Without anyone forcing him, he committed a crime for his own selfish desires. Seeing him not continuing to speak, Zhou Lichuan spoke up and said, Lin Rui, no matter how others perceive you, I have never felt that you are inferior to others. You have excellent grades and a cautious personality, and you can always discover many problems that others cannot discover. With your character, even if you are not trapped in the Zhou family and go out to explore, you will definitely be able to break through your own world. Today, it is all because you have too much obsession on your own, and you have not let go of yourself. Lin Rui wiped his face with a bitter smile and said, haha. You're being fair and square, but who knows what you're thinking. I'll be your butler and assistant, and when will you look at me with a straight eye? You'll treat me like a servant and call me around. Only someone like Jiang Zhao who grew up being abused from a young age will believe that you have a broad mind and believe that you can treat ordinary people like people. Little do you know that one day, her fate will not be as good as mine. Upon hearing him mention Jiang Zhao, Zhou Lichuan frowned and said, believe it or not, you are already sitting here. In the next few years, think carefully about how the Zhou family will treat you and how I will treat you in the first half of your life. What will happen if you don't do those illegal things? What will happen after you do them? I don't want to think, my life is already a path of no return. What's the difference between doing and not doing? Becoming a king and losing a bandit, you naturally have your own opinion. Zhou Lichuan nodded and said, then you should take care of yourself. The police officer who was monitoring next door pushed the door in and pushed Zhou Lichuan out. On the way out, Zhou Lichuan remembered Lin Rui's mention that Jiang had been abused and grown up, and couldn't help but ask the police officers around him. Officer Jiang, just now Lin Rui mentioned that Jiang Zhao grew up being abused from a young age. Jiang Zhao's father, Jiang Jingyuan, was also arrested in this case. Can you investigate whether he really abused his children during the interrogation? Officer Jiang pondered and said, this is not difficult, but I'm afraid it's not related to this case and the procedure is not very reasonable. Zhou Lichuan said, Jiang Jingyuan sent his daughter to me to be a spy and control me. A few days ago, he even started beating Jiang Zhao, probably because he didn't cooperate with his illegal behavior. Can we take this as a starting point? Officer Jiang smiled and said, that's fine, but I'm afraid it's too deep and it may not be good for your reputation, Mr. Zhou. Zhou Lichuan also smiled, with a hint of softness added to his voice. If you want to be sincere, you have to exchange your sincerity. There must be someone between us who takes a step first. She comes from a difficult background and has a gentle temperament, so I can only move forward. Officer Jiang, who had both children, suddenly began to indulge in CP and said, it's Miss Jiang's blessing that you think so. Having her around is my blessing. A week later, Jiang Zhao obtained the documents he had been detained by Jiang Jingyuan from the police station, including his ID card, graduation certificate, and household registration book. Jiang Zhao excitedly returned to the company with his ID and shared his joy with Zhou Lichuan, saying, I finally got my ID back. Zhou Lichuan's face was full of smiles, feeling her joy. Is it so happy to get back the documents? Happy, documents are such an important thing. If I want to find a job or go out to play, I need them everywhere. Moreover, obtaining these documents proves that Jiang Jingyuan's case is almost over, and things are finally coming to an end. Isn't it even happier? Zhou Lichuan nodded and said, To celebrate the return of your documents, we'll leave work early and go back to see the gifts we've prepared for you. Do I still have a gift? Jiang Zhao exclaimed in surprise, what gift is it? Just go back and you'll know. Call Du Bin to drive, and we'll go home now. Chapter 5 Play a play. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. The two of them sat down at the nearby coffee shop and casually ordered 2 cups of coffee. The hard slap just now only took a moment, and Jiang Zhao's cheeks were already swollen and high. Jiang Jingyuan sat there towering as if nothing had happened, saying, "Zhou Lichuan really likes you." Jiang looked at the milk latte in front of him in a daze and said, "Don't you know if he likes me?" Jiang Jingyuan was a bit angry and said, "Are you just talking to your father like this?" Jiang Zhao looked up at him and said, "You're in the company. I'm afraid you've been hit hard by rumors these past few days. Who gave Jiang Jingyuan the ability to raise a good daughter? Maybe he'll be even more proud if he gets a promotion and salary increase in a while." Jiang Jingyuan laughed angrily and said, Okay, your wings are hard, right? Don't think you'll fly up to the branch and become a phoenix in just 2 days." By Zhou Lichuan sighed. "He came for me. If it weren't for me, you could have been today. They wouldn't even bother to look at you." Jiang Zhao glanced at him and lowered his head to continue looking at the latte in front of him. Seeing her submissive appearance, Jiang Jingyuan couldn't break, so he had to tidy up his emotions and speak with arrogance and absurdity. "I heard that you are taking care of Zhou Lichuan's food, drink, and salad. Take advantage of him not paying attention and go to his study to get me something. Once you get it, find a way to hand it over to me." Jiang Jingyuan pulled out a photo from his phone and found a very delicate dark green box, with a vertical shape that didn't quite resemble a jewelry box, but rather a seal box. "When I was in school, I saw classmates from the calligraphy department holding similar boxes." Jiang Zhao's eyebrows furrowed as stealing seals was illegal. Looking up again, Jiang Jingyuan's eyes were filled with a greedy and fierce light. "Dad, have you ever thought that if this incident happens, I'm not the only one who will go to jail?" Jiang Jingyuan was a bit impatient and said, "My affairs are not your turn to manage. Didn't you want your mother's house? Since you can give anything for that house, what are you afraid of going to jail? Don't worry, as long as what I want to do is successful, not only do you not have to go to jail, but I will definitely give you that house. But even if it's a dilapidated building in the old county town, I won't be stingy about it." Jiang Zhao's gaze shifted to another place. Looking at Jiang Jingyuan's appearance, she felt nauseous. Eyes stared like copper bells shooting lightning like shrewdness. Jiang Zhao's phone started singing Black Cat Sheriff. When he got through, Zhou Lichuan's voice was cold and sharp. "Why did you wait so long to buy a perfume?" Jiang Zhao hesitated for a moment and answered cautiously, "I met my father, talking at the coffee shop." A cold voice echoed through his phone, even Jiang Jingyuan sitting across from him could hear clearly. "What's wrong?" "His son's street crime didn't kill me, and he wants to send his daughter over to give me a knife." Jiang Jingyuan felt guilty and took a few sips of the coffee in front of him. Jiang Zhao took a panoramic view of his father's appearance and replied with a furrowed head, "I'll be back soon. I'll be there soon." The other party hung up the phone, and Jiang Jingyuan finally put down his coffee cup. "Remember what I told you, call me when you have the chance to come out," he said. Jiang Zhao remained noncommittal and finally glanced at the latte in front of her seat before leaving the shop. She is lactose intolerant and has been unable to drink any milk since childhood, including dairy products and cheese. 23 years. Jiang Jingyuan has never taken her to heart, even for a day or a single thing. After returning to the villa, Lin Rui suddenly appeared and stopped Jiang Zhao at the door of the room. "Why did you go out for so long? It's almost dinner time before you come back." Jiang lowered his head, his disheveled hair covering his swollen cheeks, and to be honest, he said, "I ran into my father and talked a few words." Lin Rui stood there, looking up and down at Jiang Zhao, and saw that she was dressed neatly and had smooth hair, not like she was lying. Reaching out and lifting a strand of Jiang Zhao's hair, I saw the clear palm print on her fair face. "You have a good relationship with your father. Don't bother you." Lin Rui and Jiang Jingyuan were nesting together, using Jiang Jingyuan to stimulate her was really malicious. Lin Rui asked again, "Where was the watch I gave you that day?" Having guessed that he might be asking about the watch, Zhou Lichuan had already had a good temper with Jiang Zhao. Jiang Zhao replied, "When it comes to the young master, he said he doesn't want anything from other men to appear on me." Lin Rui snorted with his nose, raised his head, and sneered, "Young master is waiting for you upstairs. Change your clothes and go up quickly." As he turned around and was about to leave, Jiang Zhao quickly spoke up and asked, "Where are you going?" "I'm afraid that when the young master wants to find you, he won't know where to go." Lin Rui didn't say where he was going, only replied, "I'll be back after dinner." Jiang Zhao hurriedly returned to his room to change off his outdoor clothes, put on a soft and clean set of home clothes, and quickly ran to Zhou Lichuan's room upstairs. Pushing open the door, I saw Zhou Lichuan lying on the sofa, with the black scarf still covering his eyes. "I don't know if he's asleep," but Jiang walked slowly over and gently patted his shoulder. "I didn't sleep." Jiang Zhao was startled by the sudden sound and paused for a moment before saying, "Just now Lin Rui went out and didn't say where to go." Just as I was about to continue discussing today's situation, I was restrained by Zhou Lichuan's actions. I saw him lift his left hand and gently shake it, with a beautiful men's watch on top. Jiang Zhao instantly remembered the watch that Lin Rui had just mentioned, and it was immediately invigorating. "There is a bug in this room." Zhou Lichuan lay in place and questioned, "What did you talk to your father about?" Jiang thought for a moment and replied, "Father educated me. Tell me to take good care of you by your side. Is there nothing else?" "It's gone." Zhou Lichuan reached out to Jiang Zhao and said, "Help me up and go to the bathroom." Jiang Zhao helped the man who was much taller than him to the bathroom door and stopped, but was forcefully pulled by the man and fell into his chest. The bathroom door locked with a click. "Did he hit you?" Jiang had not yet stood firmly in the man's arms when a soft and deep voice hit him from above. Nodding habitually, I realized that Zhou Lichuan couldn't see, so I let out a Zhou Lichuan gently raised his hand and groped all the way to Jiang Zhao's cheek. The temperature caused by the pain had not completely subsided, and with a gentle touch, one could tell how much force the hand that hit the person had used. Zhou Lichuan asked again, "Did he make things difficult for you?" Jiang Zhao smiled bitterly and took a step back, leaning against the sink. "How could it be easy, but don't worry, I'm used to it." In his eyes, I've always been a greedy, selfish, and vicious person. The little girl's voice was low, and Zhou Lichuan quickly changed the topic. "Remember the driver sent to you today, he is my person. If you have anything to do when you go out, call him, at least it's safer." Jiang Zhao recalled what Jiang Jingyuan had instructed her. "Oh, by the way, Jiang Jingyuan asked me to steal a seal from your study, in a dark green box." Upon hearing this, Zhou Lichuan hugged his chest with both hands and pondered for a long time. Jiang Zhao looked at the time and realized that if he didn't go out again, the person across from the eavesdropping device might become suspicious. Just as he was about to open the door and go out, Zhou Lichuan grabbed his clothes and said, "I know what they want to do. Tonight, you stay in my room and we'll play a play." Chapter 10. Go to the police station. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A huge group, no one knew what had happened, only saw the police suddenly break in and take away the assistant to the president, Lin Rui, and the team leader of the business department. Just as everyone was shrouded in mist, Zhou Lichuan appeared downstairs from the group building in a wheelchair with gauze still covering his eyes. Jiang Zhao pushed Zhou Lichuan's wheelchair and brushed past Jiang Jingyuan and Lin Rui, who were handcuffed. A fierce hatred erupted in their eyes, knowing that they had been slapped, but helpless. Looking at Jiang Jingyuan's angry gaze, Jiang Zhao's heart finally felt 2 points of relief. Jiang Jingyuan is cautious. If she directly hands over the fake seal, he will instead carefully investigate its authenticity. Only by treating the fake as real and using it as a bargaining chip to provoke him, can she make him ignore the issue of the authenticity of the seal. This play is worth it. Dubin followed the two of them, and for the first time, he saw the usually elegant butler Lin with a cracked eye, which was completely different from his usual smiling expression. He didn't understand why the steward Lin betrayed the young master. He chose the current path, and he didn't know if he would regret it in the future. As the elevator door slowly closed, Lin Rui and Jiang Jingyuan were also taken into the police car. Jiang Zhao pushed Zhou Lichuan back to the office, but when passing by Zhou Quan's office, he heard that Lin Rui was taken away from him. Zhou Lichuan waved his hand and the three of them entered Zhou Quan's office together. Zhou Quan was on the phone in his seat when he saw Zhou Lichuan pushing the door in and hanging up after saying a few words. "Are you proud now?" Zhou Lichuan curled his lips and smiled. "I feel proud that my surroundings are clean." Zhou Quan said with resentment, "Zhou Lichuan, don't be complacent. After all, I live more than 20 years longer than you. This is just the beginning. As time goes on, let's see." Zhou Lichuan said, "There have been talented people from all over the country. My second uncle is in his prime, and his future achievements are endless." Jiang lowered his head for several weeks, the strands of hair on the back of Lichuan's head, and the corners of his mouth worked hard to press the angle. She has never heard of Zhou Lichuan being so aggressive. It's really infuriating and not worth her life. Zhou Quan's face turned green, but it was difficult to erupt. He only uttered a word, for half a day, barely showing disdain for Zhou Lichuan's provocation. Zhou Lichuan raised his hand, and Jiang Zhao received instructions to push him out. "Second uncle, you can play with Yang instead of Yin. No matter what, I will definitely accompany you to the end." In the company, Zhou Lichuan quickly sorted out the recent tasks with the help of Jiang Zhao. Dubin helped two people with tea and water on the side, which was very thoughtful. During lunch break, Dubin suddenly asked, "Young master, Miss Jiang, how did you make sure that a fake seal would definitely be discovered?" Zhou Lichuan raised his eyebrows without saying much, and Dubin looked at Jiang Zhao. Jiang Zhao patiently explained, "Mr. Gao in the project department is a young master's person. All project documents need to go through Mr. Gao's hands, and the seals on the front and back documents are different. Only one person needs to question them, and naturally someone will double-check and report to the police." Dubin suddenly realized, "Oh, I see." Zhou Lichuan also said, "Actually, this move is not very clever. It's just that they didn't anticipate that I was already prepared, nor did they anticipate that Jiang would turn against me. The timing, location, and people are in our hands, so naturally everything will go smoothly." Jiang Zhao smiled and placed the water glass next to Zhou Lichuan, saying, "Of course, the young master was well planned." Dubin continued to scratch his eyebrows to avoid harmonious coexistence between the two. Should a qualified bodyguard always wear sunglasses and place an order tomorrow to buy one? Otherwise, it would be bad if he died on duty one day because he saw something he shouldn't have seen. Having been busy for 2 days like this, Jiang Zhao and Dubin have become accustomed to Zhou Lichuan's pace of life, and their daily work revolves around Zhou Lichuan. Dubin can occasionally be sent out by Zhou Lichuan to do some other things, and Jiang has long been confined to his room with a bitter laugh. There isn't much to do with the company today, so she sits on a chair in the office to brush her phone in her spare time. Seeing college classmates preparing for postgraduate entrance exams on their mobile phones, I couldn't help but feel envious. Thinking that I haven't touched my paintbrush since graduation, I suddenly felt a bit itchy. Coincidentally, when Zhou Lichuan was free that day, he heard Jiang Zhao sighing at his phone and approaching him in a wheelchair, asking, "What's wrong with you? Why are you sighing?" Jiang Zhao put down his phone and said, "I haven't drawn for a long time, and my skills are a bit rusty. My classmates are all preparing for the postgraduate entrance exam, and I don't know what I can do in the future." Zhou Lichuan reached out to stroke his soft hair and said, you can do anything you want. Jiang Zhao smiled and didn't answer. Now is not the time to think about it, she knows. In no time, Du Bin returned from outside and brought news. Young master, Miss Jiang, there are two things that I need you both to know. Zhou Lichuan turned the wheelchair towards him to signal him to continue. Du Bin continued, during the investigation, Jiang Jingyuan said that his fake seal was stolen by Miss Jiang and given to him. Miss Jiang was also sent by him to work as an undercover agent next to the young master. In order to find out the truth, the police need Miss Jiang to cooperate and make a record. Upon hearing this, Jiang Zhao stood up from his seat and said, "Did you say what time to go? Today or any other day is fine." Du Bin replied, "Before tomorrow." Zhou Lichuan comforted her and said, "I'll accompany you later." He turned to ask Du Bin again, "What else is there?" Du Bin said, "Lin Rui has been unwilling to speak up. The police spent 2 days with him. He only said he wanted to see the young master once and only accepted the interrogation after seeing him." Jiang Zhao lowered his head and saw Zhou Lichuan's contemplative expression, grabbing his hem. Zhou Lichuan lightly patted the back of her hand to signal that it was okay. "Okay, let's pack up and go to the police station together. It's been so many years, and I also want to ask Lin Rui in person." 3 people walked together to the police station, while Du Bin stayed in the lobby waiting for the two to come out. After Jiang Zhao and Zhou Lichuan explained their intentions, they were taken in different directions by different police officers. Jiang had already sat down in a conference room, and the police lady brought a cup of warm white water to start the basic investigation of the transcripts. Jiang Zhao made no secret and explained clearly the process of his detained documents being forcibly taken to Zhou Lichuan's side. After repeated confirmation by the police lady, it was finally believed that Jiang Zhao was not bullied by Zhou Lichuan, but rather acted voluntarily in self-rescue in the play. After signing, Jiang was already sent out and sat in the hall with Du Bin waiting for Zhou Lichuan to come out. Zhou Lichuan was placed in the interrogation room by the police, with Lin Rui wearing handcuffs and looking lethargic across from him. Unfortunately, Zhou Lichuan's eyes couldn't see, and he couldn't see Lin Rui's embarrassment at this moment. In his heart, Lin Rui sitting across from him was still the well-dressed Lin butler. Chapter 12. Parents returning to China. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. At home, Jiang didn't notice anything different until Zhou Lichuan took her hand and walked all the way to an empty room door. Jiang Zhaohu hesitated and said, "Isn't this room intended to be your study?" Zhou Lichuan patted her hand and said, "Open it and take a look." Gently pushing open the door, Jiang was so shocked by the scene inside that he couldn't speak. In the center of the clean and tidy room, there stands a tall easel with a stretched canvas placed on it. The adjacent shelf is neatly arranged with various colors of oil painting pigments, brushes of various sizes, scrapers, and turpentine. Gypsum models and various scenery are placed on display shelves by the wall, with various professional books standing beside them. At dusk, the warm yellow sunlight shines on the canvas in the center through the French window, adding countless warmth to the whole studio. Is this for me?" Jiang asked Zhou Lichuan incredulously. Zhou Lichuan stood at the door and said, "Yes, I can't see it, and I don't know how Hui Jia and Du Bin are preparing, but everything is the best. If you're not used to it, you can let Du Bin take you to choose what you like." Jiang Zhao excitedly said, No, it's great right now. I really like it. I want to go in and take a look. Go ahead, it's prepared for you, you can use it as you please. Jiang Zhao ran forward and reached out to touch the blank canvas standing on the easel. It was a double-opened linen oil canvas, and feeling the familiar texture, his heart seemed to be filled with something, tangled in a ball, and rushed out of his eyes. "Did you cry?" Zhou Lichuan heard the sobbing sound and quickly walked forward, wanting to comfort the excited Jiang Zhao. Jiang Zhao wiped his tears and said, "No, I'm so happy. You know, no one has ever cared so much about my preferences before. You must have prepared these things a few days ago when I said you wanted to paint. Zhou Lichuan walked up to Jiang Zhao and comforted him softly, "You've helped me so much all the way. This is just an art studio, and compared to the help you've given me, it's nothing at all." Jiang Zhao shook his head and said, "No, that's different. You're good to me, I know." As soon as he finished speaking, Jiang Zhao turned around and hugged Zhou Lichuan's sturdy waist, saying, "Zhou Lichuan. Thank you, I really like it. Thank you for taking my words to heart so much." Zhou Lichuan bent down to embrace her and said, "As long as you like it, my thoughts will not be in vain." Jiang Zhao leaned his head against Zhou Lichuan's chest and said, "It's not in vain, not at all." Cough cough. Du Bin coughed lightly at the entrance, and the two inside reluctantly separated. "What's going on?" Zhou Lichuan's face doesn't look very good. It's best for Du Bin to have something to do, otherwise he won't be able to think about his bonus this month. Du Bin inexplicably felt a chill and said, I just received a call from overseas. The master and wife will arrive at the airport tomorrow morning. Did my parents come back? Yes. Master Biao has also returned together. It is said that he was hired by the Central Medical University to return to China as a professor. Master Biao. Jiang Zhao asked inexplicably, "Is it your cousin?" Zhou Lichuan nodded and said, "Yes. My uncle's younger brother is a very skilled doctor. You will see him tomorrow." Jiang Zhao cautiously confirmed, "Do I have to go with you tomorrow?" Zhou Lichuan touched her long hair and said, "What's wrong? Do you want to be absent from work?" Jiang Zhao bowed his head and muttered, "Roast, you don't pay me. Absenteeism is not illegal. Du Bin, go to the HR department tomorrow and hang Jiang Zhao's name. He will be listed as the CEO's assistant, with a monthly salary of 30,000 yuan. All the documents have been returned, so you can directly take them and handle them before sending them back." Du Bin readily agreed, "Good boss." Jiang Zhao also smiled happily and said, "Thank you, boss." Zhou Lichuan patted her head and said, "Let's go eat." The next morning, Zhou Lichuan, Jiang Zhao, Du Bin and their companions waited at the VIP aisle of the airport for the plane landing from country. The Zhou family's parents returned at the right time, and Zhou Lichuan took care of the company's affairs. Finally, his surroundings were clean, so there was no need to worry about anything else when interacting with them. In no time, a group of people appeared in sight. A tall man wearing a long windbreaker pushed his luggage cart, while two middle-aged men and a woman walked beside him, with a graceful and upright posture, exuding an unparalleled sense of luxury from a distance. So this is Zhou Huai, the former ruler of the Zhou family. Zhou Huai's heart has always been bad, and in recent years, he has been taking medicine without leaving his mouth. At the beginning of the year, I heard that a professor from country might have a way to regulate himself, so I went abroad with my wife for medical treatment. It has been more than half a year since then. Looking from a distance, Jiang had long been in awe. The woman next to her is even more extraordinary, with a dignified demeanor and a luxurious demeanor. She looks somewhat similar to Zhou Lichuan, wearing a beige coat and looking gentle and elegant. As she approached, Shengtian finally saw her own son sitting in a wheelchair. She quickly put down her purse and grabbed Zhou Lichuan's arm, saying, "What's wrong with you, Xiao Chuan? Why are you still in a wheelchair? What's wrong with your eyes? What's wrong with you? Tell your mother quickly, is someone bullying you? How could you be like this?" She was about to cry as she spoke. Zhou Huai frowned and comforted, "Don't cry for now. Let's go home first. This is not the place to talk." Shengtian wiped her eyes and quickly nodded, saying, "Good." The group returned to the old house of the Zhou family, which was not far from the villa where Zhou Lichuan had lived before. As they were driving on that road, Jiang Zhao nervously grabbed Zhou Lichuan's clothes. Feeling Jiang Zhao's nervousness, Zhou Lichuan reached out and grabbed Jiang Zhao's hand, releasing a comforting signal. The small actions of the two fell into the eyes of the elders, and the atmosphere in the nanny's car suddenly became awkward. After arriving home, Jiang had just pushed Zhou Lichuan into the living room, and Shengtian sat on the sofa repeatedly confirming his son's condition. Zhou Lichuan had no choice but to stand up and explain, "Mom, my legs are fine and my eyes are not convenient, so I used a wheelchair to avoid causing trouble for others." Shengtian quickly asked, "What's wrong with your eyes? Are you sick or accidental? What about Lin Rui? He has been following you all along, hasn't he taken good care of you?" Speaking of Lin Rui, Zhou Lichuan's expression changed. "Mom, please sit down first. Dad, you also sit down. I will slowly talk to you too." The family adjusted their state, and Zhou Lichuan slowly revealed his experience of being attacked, being controlled and monitored, and escaping from Shengtian with the help of Jiang Zhao to let Lin Rui fall into law. After listening, Shengtian wept heartily on the side. Jiang Zhao promptly handed over the tissue, but couldn't alleviate the pain of being a mother. After listening to the whole story, Zhou Huai's face showed a solemn expression. He has been involved in shopping malls for most of his life, having seen too many ups and downs, and his thoughts are more comprehensive than those of others. Has Zhou Quan retreated all over this time? Zhou Lichuan nodded and said, "Yes, no direct evidence of his involvement has been found, and Lin Rui and Jiang Jingyuan have not confessed him either. It seems that they have prepared a backup." Zhou Huai pondered and said, "Jiang Jingyuan has a wife and children, so it's easy to handle them. Lin Rui is an orphan, and he can decide to fight for Zhou Quan's thunder. Either Zhou Quan promised him something, or Lin Rui really hates you and the Zhou family, to the point where he would rather go to jail than leave someone to continue dealing with you." Chapter 3. Making a Transaction. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lin Rui's eloquence made him look completely different from his morning gaze, nose, and heart. He, eager to prove himself, naturally did not notice the slightly curved corner of Zhou Lichuan's mouth. But Jiang saw it early. She not only saw Zhou Lichuan's, but also Manager Gao's. Manager Gao stared at the floor, lowered his head, and carefully listened to Lin Rui's output. No one could tell what was wrong with this person. Jiang has painted countless human body movements and is very sensitive to the changes in characters' expressions. Even subtle movements cannot escape her eyes. Thinking of the causes and consequences of coming to Zhou Lichuan's side, a terrifying idea came to her mind. Zhou Lichuan's injury won't be related to Lin Rui, right? Zhou Lichuan was very satisfied with Lin Rui's statement, saying, "I didn't expect you to have such an opinion. It's really not easy. Just follow what you said and cooperate with Manager Gao, and the result will be produced within 2 days." Lin Rui just felt proud for a moment and felt uneasy when he heard that he was leaving Zhou Lichuan for 2 days. "Mr. Zhou, you can't do without people right now. Let Manager Gao go on his own, and I'll stay and continue to take care of you," he said. Zhou Lichuan said with a rare and amiable expression, "Why are you so polite? Isn't this still early? She will take care of it. You can rest assured to go." Jiang Zhao was suddenly called out and quickly sat up straight, looking up at Lin Rui in confusion. Lin Rui seemed to really like the state that Jiang Zhao showed, smiled for a moment, and agreed. "Okay, I'll go to the factory with Manager Gao right now. Mr. Zhou's side will be taken care of by Miss Jiang these days." Jiang Zhao stood up and looked at Zhou Lichuan. He didn't show any displeasure, so he nodded and said, "Okay. I will do my best to take care of the young master." Shortly after Lin Rui followed Manager Gao, Zhou Lichuan remotely controlled the smart speaker to play music and closed all the blinds in the CEO's office. Quickly, the vast office was isolated from the outside world, forming an absolute private space. "Zhou. Young Master Zhou. Jiang took an unnatural step back, and behind him was the sofa, almost falling back into it. Zhou Lichuan impatiently tugged at the tie around his neck, his veins bulging on the back of his hand, and impatiently shook it twice. "Come here, untie the ribbon on my face." Jiang Zhao walked cautiously behind Zhou Lichuan and gently unbuttoned the ribbon. As soon as he approached Zhou Lichuan with a scarf in his hand, he was tightly grasped. Zhou Lichuan exerted a force, and Jiang had already fallen on his back. "Young master. This is the company." Jiang Zhaosheng was afraid that he would make any more amazing moves, so he quickly spoke out to stop his more excessive behavior. Zhou Lichuan touched her palm, gradually moving upwards along her skin, and his fingers reached into her sleeves. Jiang struggled, but was pulled back by brute force. After some exploration, Zhou Lichuan finally touched the watch on Jiang Zhao's wrist. With a clever move, he removed the watch and turned his hand to touch the position of the teacup. He threw the watch into the water cup, making a gurgling sound. That watch was handed to her by Lin Rui this morning, saying that she couldn't pick up her phone at any time by Zhou Lichuan's side. Having a watch would be much more convenient. Jiang didn't think too much before bringing it along. Zhou Lichuan's actions scared Jiang Zhao into a daze. She seems to know something inconvenient for her to know. The black scarf fell down, and Jiang Zhao saw Zhou Lichuan's face for the first time. His eyelashes were long and thick. The nose is tall and straight, with deep eye sockets. There is a lot of white space on the face, making it very firm. "Are you scared?" Zhou Lichuan's voice as he removed the scarf was not as cold as before. With the mentality of trying not to die, Jiang Zhao took a breath and said, "It's not as scary as that. I'm not that timid." Zhou Lichuan smiled for a moment, with a hint of mockery in his voice. "You're not stuttering now." Jiang Zhao's eyes turned and he gritted his teeth. "It's not as good as your acting skills, young Master Zhou." Zhou Lichuan nodded and said, "You're very smart. Tell me how much you've guessed." Jiang Zhao stood up and rested her hands on the chair, still weighing the pros and cons, trying her best to find more opportunities for herself. Although Zhou Lichuan's eyes were not good, his heart was bright. "Don't think about it, you only have my choice now." After swallowing his saliva, Jiang Zhao finally spoke up, "There's a bug inside that watch." Zhou Lichuan nodded and said, "Not bad, continue." Jiang Zhao finally stopped being polite and said, "Your injury was not only caused by Jiang Zhiyan and his group, but also by Lin Rui. It was Lin Rui who colluded with my father and framed you. There should be someone behind them. That person is within the group, and Manager Gao is your person. He deliberately separated Lin Rui in order to leave you alone time to seek help from me." Zhou Lichuan tugged at his tie again. It seemed that the tie really made him uncomfortable. "I'm asking for help from you. Why do I believe you? You're Jiang Jingyuan's daughter." Jiang remained silent for a moment before saying, "Because you have no other choice." "What about you?" Zhou Lichuan asked. Jiang Zhao reached out his hands and tidied up his tie for him. He loosened the tie knot a bit, moved it down a minute, and then retied it. "I have no other choice." Zhou Lichuan held Jiang Zhao's hand and smiled, saying, "Feel free. Let's talk about the terms." Jiang Zhao bent down with his strength and hugged the man sitting behind him, saying, "Before my mother passed away, there was a house in Jiang Jingyuan's hands. I want that house. After everything is done, I still need 1 million. Get out of this place." Zhou Lichuan's eyes stared blankly at the table in front of him, his mind calculating all the gains and losses. "Is that all? That's it? I thought you would make more demands." Zhou Lichuan was right. Jiang had already considered making more demands, but compared to the only property left by his mother before her death, those seemed so insignificant. Zhou Lichuan raised his hand and touched Jiang Zhao's cheek, saying vaguely, "I thought you would want to be my Mrs. Zhou." Jiang lowered his body and whispered in Zhou Lichuan's ear, no woman will fall in love with a pervert who molests her. Even if that person is your young master Zhou. Zhou Lichuan lowered his head and finally succumbed, saying, I apologize to you for yesterday's incident. Lin Rui is listening next door and won't do anything real. He's afraid he might just enter your room at night to use force. But I know apologizing is useless, and I need to say compensation. In my current situation, I can't take it out for a while. So, I can make you a promise. When you need it in the future, I can fulfill this promise at any time. Jiang lowered his eyebrows and pondered for a moment before nodding in agreement, okay. It's a deal.